Hey everyone, today's a bit of a different one. At the time of writing this, the Flight Sim Expo is going on in Las Vegas. Chances are you were like me and were unable to attend, but this is where the point of the video comes in. I've kept in contact with the combat pilot team, and they wanted to make sure that the word got out on what they shared in Vegas. You see, at a conference, teams will share their presentation on a stage, but their time is limited up there. The point of being up there is to excite people enough so they visit your booth, and then you can unpack the topic and get into the nitty gritty. What they shared on stage is already on YouTube, but it's short, it's only 10 minutes, and I spent 90 minutes with the team getting into all the details. So today, I report back on what it was like to visit their booth virtually, so you all get a sense of what they are sharing out there in their booth in Vegas. Additionally, at the end, we will get a quick glimpse of the experimental build that was showed off at Vegas. If this is your first time here, this channel focuses on multiplayer sim gameplay. So if you're into that, please subscribe. So just to set the table, the first thing the team wanted to get across is that the combat pilot team believe they are going to be the first original hardcore World War II combat flight sim franchise in 20 years. DCS, IL-2, Falcon 4 are all from dated and existing engines. Additionally, they think they will be the first publicly available combat flight sim using Unreal 5. So all in all, tabula rasa, a blank slate with no pre-built issues or bugs from a legacy game. Next, we go into the origins. I will not spend too much time on this, but just to make it as a reminder, Entropy Aero is the company making Combat Pilot. It is a joint venture between Barbed Wire Studios, the creators of Gates of Hell Ostfront, my favorite World War II RTS game, by the way, you should really get it, and Sky Streak Productions, who is headed by Jason Williams, the former executive producer of IL-2 Great Battles, and the founder of 777 Studios, which brought us Rise of Flight. The small team has been at work for only 12 months or so we are still very early in the lifetime of this game. So what happened in those 12 months? These are the things that they have worked on. I will be honest, some of these things I simply do not have the expertise to speak to. So how innovative some of these things are is to be determined. I'm not going to regurgitate what they said unless I really understood it. So I'm going to shy away from the technology piece. The only thing though is I did ask specifically about virtualized geometry because the no LODs caught my eye. They said that this will dynamically change the size of objects based on range. So I guess this will make things more fluid in terms of spotting, which sounds good. Lastly, they did double click into dynamic weathering. They specifically said that their ambition with this is that snow, sand, or rain will all be visible on the plane itself. Moving on to implementation, we get into some interesting things. The first thing is that the combat pilot team has spent a significant amount of time on technology. So much that they joke that their tools are probably worth more than their current project now. So what have they built? Plane specifications can only tell you so much, like top speed, for example. But what about when you roll? How does adverse yaw affect the plane? They developed a tool based on industry expertise, i.e. Airbus and other aerospace experience that their team has, and basically built a tool that can derive aircraft performance from blueprints. In aerospace, this is a tool that would calculate how a plane behaves before it goes into production. In short, this will help flesh out the blind spots from technical manuals, which is good because one sticking point about the Pacific always was the limited Japanese information. I asked if this is basically a digital wind tunnel. They said that it's more. It will be able to calculate the plane in all flight envelopes and be able to calculate things like turbulence models. To me, this sounds interesting, but I think this is one of these things that I will have to see how it feels after flying a few planes against each other. And then you'll really get an idea like how good it feels. But it sounds interesting. I did ask about geospatial because I wasn't really sure what this was. They said that they want to make sure that the spherical nature of the Earth is presented in the gaming environment. They felt that this was important for naval combat. Going into content development, they did want to get the word out around research. They are interested in people to help out with this, so get on their Discord and their forum. Moving on, we did talk about carrier operations. They said they want to make sure that the operations of the carrier are usable, like elevators and such. So this will be really neat to see because this has been largely ignored in most games. Lastly, they did want to make sure to get the word out to say that they are willing to work with third-party module makers, which is great. All the other things I feel like are pretty self-explanatory of what has been done to date. So a good review of what has happened. I think this next section is where the real meat of the discussion was. This slide breaks down the three main challenges that they have identified that they think they need to address in order to be successful. For those that have been wondering what this project is really about, now is the time to lean in because a lot is answered. First challenge, they want a huge amount of planes, players, and AI units, but also have a high level of fidelity. How is the combat pilot method to tackling this problem? First, if there is a choice between fidelity versus scale, they will pick scale. Additionally, they did say to me that they will 100% be full fidelity. Now, what does full fidelity mean? This word means a lot and nothing at the same time. Comma Pilot and I spent a long time talking about this, and they asked me what I thought full fidelity meant, and I said I don't like the term, but rather opted to explain what sustainable fidelity means to me. In general, it is pretty clear to me, and hopefully clear to you, that having the maximum level of fidelity is a trap, and as I have covered in other videos. But rather, what is more important is having a sustainable level of fidelity, or a level of fidelity that can be equally applied to all parts or all planes in the game so everything feels cohesive. We went back and forth on what full fidelity means. Does it mean that all cockpits will fog up due to humidity? Will guns jam? Can you make your own custom belts? They said their aspirations are to model fidelity when it is core to the experience and to make sure that it can be applied as a standard to the other aircraft. They said it is absolutely critical that standards are applied because they believe it is too dejecting when your plane is limited by something and then you run across someone whose plane is not limited by that level of fidelity. And I have to say, they are 100% right. Additionally, their thought on wanting to model fidelity when it is core to the experience, also only when it can be equally applied and not at a large cost of scale, is a very mature and good one. Fidelity for fidelity reasons is, in my opinion, laziness to distract you from other deficiencies. Ask yourself this: would IL-2 Great Battles really feel different if their cockpits were clickable? I don't really think so. And this question was one that the Combat Pilot team and I discussed, and they were in agreement. If you are one of these people that is upset by this line of thinking, then let me be rude for a second. In order to startle you awake, people who are pendatic are having their ability to be immersed and their imagination be suffocated. Let me remind you of this old Falcon 4 quote from the manual that came out so many years ago. Quote, if you ask designers to create a simulator without any compromises, they would end up designing the aircraft itself. The art of simulation design is about understanding limited fidelity. The discussion I had with the Combat Pilot team on this subject was one of the best discussions I have ever had on this topic, and I have to say that the project does sound spiritually aligned in terms of trying to make sure how a ratio can be calculated between scale and fidelity. As I got more excited, I got nervous because being an enjoyer of flight sims is a bit of a curse, and being excited about a flight sim is a formula for regret. So while excited at this moment, I started to have my guard up. So I asked, what will the level of fidelity feel like in this game? They said their aspirations are to be between IL-2 Great Battles and DCS. I asked, what will be the difference between this and DCS? To me, it already seemed like they were already aiming for DCS-like fidelity levels, but it would have standards. To that, they said that the first time you get into a DCS cockpit, you need to watch a YouTube video to be able to play. They want the game to be accessible for people who want to just pop in and use an auto start, but also they want to also allow players to be able to manually start. This is the ambition, and now we get to the grounding of this whole discussion. How much fidelity is still up in the air? The ambition is there, but it is still unclear of how much exactly. I pressed them on this, and their general answer is based on the cadence of their content production. Every year, or year and a half or two, whatever cadence they identify, they want to be able to release a map and 8 or so planes. This and the scale of the battles in the game will dictate the level of fidelity that will be possible, but they did confirm clickable cockpits will be possible. So a lot more information, and we get a better sense of their aspirations, but more waiting to see how much fidelity they can do, because as I said, it ultimately boils down to their output in terms of how many planes they can produce in the desired cadence. They do seem very bullish on the fact that they are on the Unreal Engine and have done the groundwork with their tools to be able to churn out planes. They did say they are open to partnering with third-party development teams to expand production. Next challenge was keeping up with technology. Their concern was a game that ends up feeling really old before its time was up. I'm speaking for myself, but I think the golden example of this is IL-2 Cliffs of Dover. The few people who can maneuver its ancient UI seem to really love that game. And on paper, it actually really seems like the game that we all should be playing. But the UI is the largest filter I have ever seen for a game before. They said that their focus is making sure their game is compatible with the engine. They are tying their success with Unreal 5 maturing. They specifically called out that flight sim should last for 10 years, and they are positioning themselves around that. They have a long-term vision. To me, this was really refreshing to hear, because if you think about it, War Thunder, DCS, IL-2 Great Battles all came to be and sort of snowballed into what they were. I don't know if this is technically correct, but to me, it seems like it was not really the plan for these games to become what they became. So to see a dev studio trying to lay the foundation for a 10-year plan is refreshing. The last one is being able to provide simulation that is true to history and fun to fly. They said they are grounding themselves into the community. I thought this was a nice one, but I didn't take too much out of this because this is one that is really proven over time, but it's nice they are conscious of the ambition. They specifically did address that sometimes there can be a bit of arrogance from development teams, and then it creates for tension with the community on things like changes or fixes. They said they intend to be very open and that they want the community's feedback and documentations to make changes when in reason. Additionally, they specifically said they want to be able to have their flight models be congruent with the aerospace industry standards, meaning that any aerospace student fresh out of school can come into the company and be able to understand everything. The flight model is being built around aerospace standards and not as just a game. They think that this will allow them to move faster as they are not weighted down by the baggage of 10-year-old systems. How true this is, I'm not sure, but it sounds great. It's one of these things that gets validated as it's happening, but oh boy, it's exciting to hear. So we know what has been done. We know what they want to do. What's the plan for this coming year? One, they want to grow the team and get more budget. They are looking for investors. And on top of that, they want to build out more while refining what they already have. My reaction to this, and let me also remind everyone, I'm not a video game developer, but my reaction to this is that they have set up a foundation to spring off of. So they are refining as they are going, but we're building out more. The next thing is future plans. They wanted to share out what else they are working on. They want to continue their franchise in phases. What they said basically reminds me of IoT Great Battles and its business model, which is a relief to hear because the IoT Great Battles business model, in my opinion, is the most consumer-friendly one out of all the current games. Their midway phase is their proof of concept and the first playable content. They will expand their reach with the community, their production, and start to launch ancillary revenue streams. While doing all that, they will be gearing up for the Solomons. This, they called out, will be a much bigger project in terms of scale. They specifically called out the ability to help optimize the game with Midway and prepare themselves for the much larger and ambitious project, and it all sounds great to me. In summary, it seems like they can see light at the end of the tunnel. They seem confident that by the time they get to Midway, that they will be properly geared up for the next big project. I have to say that I'm getting very optimistic, a little bit just because I feel like I have to hold on to some shred of hope, but to me, it seems like Combat Pilot has their head at the right place, and I feel like this is the hard part. Some games see consumers as piñatas to extract money from. Other games lack any vision or ambition to make a cohesive experience. Combat Pilot seems to be different. They seem to be aligning around a consumer-friendly business model with a 10-year vision and a preference to build out a cohesive experience that has scale and as much detail as they can afford in order to still be able to generate content in a reasonable time frame. If they are able to execute it and how much detail they can put into their plans is to be determined, but the spiritual alignment to me seems to be there. And I would imagine that many of you are going to be of the same opinion, just based on the simple fact that I have been complaining and calling for this sort of thinking for the last few years. And it's one of the reasons why I think this channel has really swelled. So with all this shared, we can get our first look at the experimental build that was shared in Vegas. I have to say, I was surprised. They let this be shared, so I asked them why. And they said, "We know this is raw. We are not going to hide it until it is a polished product. We want to be honest of where we are at. The players can see the origins and make their own ideas of how long it will take to make a fleshed out product." I want to remind everyone that around this time last year, I don't even think these guys had an engine yet. They built this all in 12 months while building out the backbone of their game. So to me, this seems pretty fast. Jason lives in Vegas and the conference is also in Vegas. So I got the sense that they sort of had to show up to remind everyone that they are working on this silently in the background. While we fly around, I did want to add in a few things that I asked on the side because I was curious and I know this is top of mind for me and I would guess many of you. The game will include a mission editor. They seem to be on a crusade to build a mission editor that is very reminiscent of an older game. They did not want to say which one, but I think I got the hint. Dynamic campaign is very top of mind and is part of the plan, but they can't commit to it being available at release for Midway. But I heard it directly from the technical lead. He is extremely passionate about dynamic campaigns. I can also say that I know that the developers of this game spend a lot of time still playing IL-2 1946 dynamic campaigns. I have to say, with how things have been going the last year or two in simming, I have been a little sour. I realized I was the one that said that we are currently in a sim dark age. But damn, my timing could not have been more eerie. So with that said, I'm very cautious to be excited, but I have to say I am, and maybe even hopeful again. The team seems very determined to communicate where their head is at, laying out their ambitions, while also saying they aren't sure how far they can go, but are grounded in the ratio of wanting to generate content at a reasonable time frame. They reminded me that they think they can do what they have ahead of them, so they take this as a sign to be allowed to dream a bit more of what else they can do. I did push back with a little skepticism. This all sounds too good to be true, and to see what they would say. They said they are not accepting money yet, except from investors. They are simply sharing plans with the community. When they get closer and have a really clear understanding of what will be in the initial delivery, then they will feel comfortable to accept money with a feature list in hand, which to me is a very reasonable position. It, of course, would be ridiculous to collect money without a feature list and without a clear understanding if they can get there or not. So in short, they are getting the word out. They are letting people know they are still there and bringing people on for the ride, but still being grounded. When the time comes, we can see what it looks like. I hope you guys found the video interesting. This was like an interview, but with just one person talking, which for me was a little odd, but I and many of you could not be in Vegas. So I hope you liked hearing the information secondhand, as if I had gone and brought it back to you. I want to thank the Combat Pilot team for being willing to share to me what they are presenting there and giving me the chance to share with all of you. That way, we're all in the loop. Let me know what your thoughts are below. Does anyone dare be excited in this genre? I have to say, I think I'm getting a little excited. Let me know below. Thanks, and by the way, if you are listening, there is around a 68% chance that you are not subscribed. Let's boost these numbers up. Help me out here. Thanks.